Hey, CrossFitters, welcome back. It's Coach Bob here, CrossFit Glen Burnie, and my goal is to help us all become better CrossFitters. So today we're going to be talking about virtuosity and a focus on the fundamentals. And these principles are going to help us to get more strong, more skillful, and be able to work out at our highest level. So come with me as we share these topics together. And at the end of the talk today, I have some bonus videos that are going to help us to explore and dig a little deeper. So together, let's jump in. All right, virtuosity is defined in gymnastics as performing the common uncommonly well. Unlike risk and originality, virtuosity is elusive, supremely elusive. The Novices Curse is when there's a compelling tendency among novices developing any skill or art to quickly move past the fundamentals. I got it, coach, and move on to more elaborate, more sophisticated movement, greater skills and techniques before they really get the fundamentals down 100%. So when we look at those kinds of things, we really instead want to commit to the basics. And if you commit to the basics, the fundamentals that is, you're not going to be bored. You're going to be awed at what you can do. You're going to quickly come to recognize the potency of those fundamentals. You'll also be able to advance in every measurable way past those that are not blessed to have a commitment to the fundamentals or the basics. When we work with individuals for the first time, we cover our movement first principle, and this is mechanics and consistency before adding load or intensity. So when we look at our mechanics, it's really being able to execute the points of performance. But then when you add in consistency, being able to execute those points of performance rep after rep, not only when a coach is watching, but without a coach's eye, and showing up consistently. You know, whatever you're promising yourself to be able to work out, being able to show up consistently and work on those things. Intensity is only added when the other two are in place. So our movement first principle is focusing on the mechanics and the consistency before adding intensity, complexity, or load. Now I have a little diagram that helps us to kind of think about these three things or these things. And I'm comparing together strength, skill, and intensity. And so when we look at doing anything in the gym or CrossFit in general, it's just going to require some combination of strength and skill, right? So we could take a movement like a barbell snatch. In order to do a barbell snatch properly, we have to be able to first make sure that we can do an overhead squat properly and with stability and with good form and technique. But before we can do an overhead squat, we need to be able to squat at all, be able to do an air squat with high precision and high virtuosity, right? So we want to make sure that we have the fundamentals in before we progress onto the more complex and higher skill movements. And so the intensity, you can kind of think of what would happen if I started increasing the intensity before I had the required strength. If it was a barbell lift and the load was too heavy, I'm going to fail that repetition, or the mechanics will break down. On a deadlift, for example, if I don't have the core strength and stability to perform the deadlift properly, then as the load increases, the mechanics of that movement will break down. Likewise, on our skill, for example, a gymnastics skill, a kipping pull-up, for example. If I don't have the fundamentals of a core, a strong, stable midline while trying to perform my gymnastics movements, then the movement will not be efficient. The movement will not be as strong as it can be, and I may fail those repetitions and not have be able to complete as many as I would otherwise. And so the intensity of the movement would have to drop in order for me to be able to complete that movement. Likewise, if I were to increase the complexity of the movement, let's say instead of the pull-up, I wanted to do a bar muscle up, but I haven't yet mastered the skill of kipping properly on the bar or having a stable midline, then the development of that skill for a bar muscle up will be that much more difficult and may just never happen. And so what we want to do is we want to recognize the balance between strength and skill before adding intensity and load. Now, a focus on those fundamentals is something that is evident in these videos that I want to share with you today. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play maybe 10 or 15 seconds of each one of these, just so you can get a little taste of these different, slightly more advanced skill movements and how these experts are focusing on the fundamentals. And then if you want to dive deeper, I've included these links in the description down below so that you can yourself explore at, when you have the time to dig in a little deeper, okay? Now with that focus on the fundamentals first, I wanted to make sure we had that before we pursue the more advanced movements. All right, so the first thing that I have up here is a video where Demi provides 6 tips for beginners in calisthenics, and they go over, she's working with Chris, they go over scap pull-ups, one-arm push-up progressions, and a full planche lean. And I pulled those 3 tips out, and I just want to share maybe 10 or 15 seconds of each one of these with you. Then we're going to move on to Dave, and Dave Durante is going to share progressions for the L-sit, and then also progressions for a planche on rings with Chris Spieler. So the first up is going to be Demi, and she's going to just go over the fundamentals of a scap pull-up. And I pulled this one out because when we think about those pull-ups, this is fundamental. We have to make sure that we have this strength before we progress onto our pull-ups. All right.
Doing some scapular pulls. This exercise right here, no matter where you are in your pull-up progression, these are going to help you significantly, whether you want to get more pull-ups, whether you want to get one-arm pull-ups. These scapular pulls are going to get you so much stronger. So essentially, you're going to hop on the bar, hands shoulder width apart. Y'all probably want to film it from the back so you can see it. You're going to be up here, and you're literally going to let your lats open up, then you're gonna engage them and pull all the way up through your lats and come back down. So really keeping loose lat here, engaging and pulling up. And you're gonna be doing this for reps. Really squeezing those lats together in the back. I know it's kind of hard to see with a sports bra, but you're really gonna help engage those shoulders and those lats to get stronger pull-ups.
100%, I can definitely vouch for this exercise. This is one I've been using since the beginning of my fitness journey, I feel like, to increase my pull-up repetitions and just get my overall pulling strength a whole lot stronger.
Super. Absolutely what we're trying to talk about here. We want to focus on those fundamentals, building that strength in the fundamental movements before moving on to the more complex movements like kipping pull-ups and chest to bar pull-ups and butterfly pull-ups and things like that. We need to make sure that we have very strong scap pull-ups so that we can properly stabilize and centrate our shoulder joint for the kinds of movements that we would be doing in those other more advanced pull-up movements. Okay, the next tip that they are sharing with us is going to be our one-arm push-up progression.
So this drill you don't need any equipment for, but you would be so surprised on how challenging you can make this on yourself. So essentially, you're gonna go down to the ground and you're going to mimic having a one arm, but you're gonna have a little bit more stabilization there to help you build more strength. So you're gonna be up in a push-up position.
All right, let me pause it here for a second because I want to point out the fundamentals, right? The position she goes to first here is our standard push-up position. And you see a nice, strong plank position. Her heels and her toes are together. Her quads and glutes are engaged. She has a strong upper back position, and at her shoulders and elbows and wrists are all stacked together. Now from there,
and you're gonna bring one arm out. So you can see here, I'm gonna put more weight on this left hand, so it's gonna be a little bit easier. But the further you bring your arm out, the harder it's gonna be because you're putting more pressure on one side. So we're gonna do a few push-ups, fingers out, arms straight, really just working on that one side. And then you can switch. I'll show you guys here. Look, it's a little bit easier if you're putting more pressure on this hand. But if you wanna make it more challenging for yourself, bring your hand further out.
Right, and emphasize with the pushing hand. So your straight arm is just there for like support.
This straight arm is gonna help you stabilize and equal out a little bit of the weight distribution so it's not as challenging for you. That way you can do more reps and get stronger with it because
definitely a great point, right? So if we are able to find the right balance of the movement, right, progression, instead of going strictly to a one-arm push-up and then failing the movement and breaking down on the mechanics, we add stability by having that alternate arm extended out away from the body. And that allows us, just like Demi said, to be able to perform more reps and actually get good practice in on the movement that we're trying to do. Okay, next up, we have Chris is going to share with us a full planche lean. I think this is a great progression that everyone can work on as well.
And this is a progression that you'll be using your entire fitness journey from a beginner all the way to like super, super advanced. I'm still using it to this day. That's gonna be the full planche lean. This move is so simple, especially when it comes to lifting your own body weight. So let me show you what that looks like. I like to put my hands about shoulder width apart. Eventually you can practice using different grips like wide and stuff like that. My thumbs will be forward, arms straight, and you wanna lean as far as you can until your hands reach your waistline.
wow.
And come right back. Mm-hmm. And you just do that for reps. The most important thing is that you have perfect form.
So strong.
And that you keep your arms locked out and straight.
You can really see him keeping his arms locked out and keeping his hips down. And the further forward he leans, the more challenging it's gonna be, the more weight distribution he's putting on his hands, and essentially building more strength to be able to do planches and those presses where his feet are off the ground.
That's right, and eventually the stronger you get, you can take one foot off the ground.
Ooh, okay.
Other foot.
Other foot.
Now, if you're just starting off, of course, you're not gonna be able to lean that far. And if you do, you might find your arms bending. Whatever you do, lean as far as you can with your arms straight. Because if your arms are bending, you're not doing anything.
Okay, so that was Chris, and he was providing that progression for full planche lean. And what I want to do is I want to jump down to this last one I have, where Dave Durante is going to share with us a gymnastics planche on rings. And he is working with Chris Spieler, one of the CrossFit Games athletes. And so he's going over these fundamentals with Chris and going over how to execute it properly. That being said, they don't just go right to, the ultimate movement. He takes them through progressions. And one of the first progressions he takes them through is a tuck progression. Okay, so here we have a CrossFit Games athlete.
Even if you want to do it just tucked, that's fine. That would actually be a good way to start. So you're gonna be here and then up in this tuck position here.
Okay. Jeez.
Okay?
We'll work on that first.
So trying to get your butt up a little bit, you want your back to be closer to parallel to the ground. Tuck up. There you go. Keep the rings in. Lock those elbows out.
Wow.
Good. Position looks great. Position looks great. You have a slight bend here. Okay?
Yeah, I do.
You're strong enough to be able to do it. You're using too much of your strength rather than that locked out joint position. That's what we want to see, all right?
Is that more stable? Because I feel like the rings are going to go crazy.
No, it's definitely more stable. It's more stable, and it's not going to require so much strength.
Okay.
You're going to be able to stay in that position a lot longer. Right now, you're forcing yourself to use muscle. This is just a locked out joint. You can stay here a lot longer.
So you guys, here's Chris Spieler. He's a CrossFit Games athlete, but he's not just going right into the ultimate movement. We're breaking it down. He's going into a tuck, and we're working on small improvements along the way, right? So it looked decent when he was doing the tuck planche, but Dave, could see that he was bending his right arm a little bit, and that was just holding some tension right there. So, Dave is going to work with him on that part before progressing to the ultimate full planche movement. So again, a focus on fundamentals is not reserved just for the novice. It's something that, our intermediate and advanced athletes are practicing all of the time. The last video I want to share with you is an L-sit progression. Again, Dave is going to go over. We're just going to look at one small part of it. He has an 18-minute video with a lot of great information in it. You guys can take that deeper dive. But I just want to show you how even in this gymnastics movement, we can scale it, and it's still very important to get those fundamentals ironed in right from the beginning.
Here on Parallettes, you want to be thinking about externally rotating. It will help pull the shoulder back into position. And we're going to be thinking about the pit of the elbow facing a little bit more in the direction of those hands. The tuck position, even if you're just on the support side with your feet down on the ground, you can work a little bit more on what the support is looking like here. I don't want you to be shrugged from the shoulder. You want to be driving down into the ground, creating a long spine, thinking about a lot of separation between your ears and your shoulders. You're not sinking down in this position. So you're only thinking about trying to create as long of a spine as you possibly can. Now, like we talked about, shorten the lever is going to be kind of part one. So what we'll try to do here is just a 3-second hold with those knees as deep into the chest as possible. And we'll show you the two variations, one that has a tendency to lean forward and then one that leans back. So version 1, feet off the ground, leaning the shoulders forward. This is a very common error that we see with our tuck holds. In this position here, again, my shoulders are rolling forward, elbows are turned in. This is a much weaker position in the long run because you're relying so much on a muscle group that we want to try to avoid with a proper L-sit. As opposed to a tuck position that is a little bit more neutral in that spine, thinking more about driving the hips and knees forward, leaning back slightly. This position, again, is allowing me to open up that elbow position, rely more on that locked out joint rather than the muscle structure. Okay?
So there, Dave is, going over those fundamentals. Before we move on to the full L-sit, he is first showing us how we can just kind of support ourselves, even if we have our feet on the floor, to still make sure that we have good position of our shoulders and our elbows. And we want to build on those successes with small steps along the way. That's how we get better at what we do. It's small steps along the way, and we want to make sure that that focus is there on the basics and the fundamentals all the way. And that is what is going to open the door for increased load, increased intensity, more speed, and more complexity in our overall movements. Guys, I am so happy that you were able to join me today as we went into a little bit of how those fundamentals help us to build and get better at CrossFit. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Take care and have a good day. Peace.